This is VSiN, the sports betting network.
The numbers told the story, they always do.
It's one of those idiots who believe in analytics.
This is a numbers game with Gil Alexander on VSiN.
Good Tuesday morning. Tune is a numbers game at VSiN, the sports betting network, VSiN.com, Game Plus, iHeartRadio, YouTube TV, however you take it us in. We appreciate it. It's Gil Alexander. It is Kelly Bidlin alongside. It's a numbers game live from Circa. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I didn't get the last tweets you just sent me. Got him now, though.
Oh, well, we'll do those later. Oh, by the way, look, there's a cord around my thing. I was
Yeah,
ready for the show.
Hey, we're getting used to the NASCAR changeover here in studio. Okay, Gil and I, it's been a long time since we've had shows in front of us.
We literally, yesterday, I think for a brief moment, we were like, should we go back to the D? And then we were like, no, probably not. We shouldn't do that. On the show today, Kelly, I don't know if you know this, it is Election Day 2024. Polls are open in Nevada as of, this last minute.
Yeah.
And around the nation. And again, we don't care who you vote for, but please do exercise your vote. People have died for this privilege, and it's what makes our country so great. We will talk election betting with Mac Verstandig a little later on the show. Gaming attorney Drew Dinsick, I'm sure, will have something to say about that as well. In addition, his thoughts on the NFL. Will Hill, all his bets. Paul Carr with a little Champions League. Paul Carr moving the chains, coming off a 3-0 Premier League weekend.
That's right.
How about that?
Let's go. Keep it rolling. Champions League this week.
Do you know anything about that? Mel Allen this week in baseball. Do you know anything about that? How about that?
Yeah, I do.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. But,
okay.
It's one of those shows that I would have only seen afterward, right?
Well, yes, obviously.
Yeah.
It was a in-the-moment thing when we were kids, but YouTube, the power of YouTube.
No, right, exactly.
Okay, now it's time for this week's Twib Notes. Here's the thing. We're going to talk election as well. So twice today, and I just want to state this in advance. Apolitically speaking, we're all just trying to make money, and I hope we can all be friends after this. Is that okay? Is that a good disclaimer and everything?
Absolutely.
I hope we can all be friends on this after all this. All right, last night, Monday Night Football, Tampa Bay, Kansas City. The Chiefs win, but do not get the money. The Chiefs win in overtime, 30-24. Interesting ball game because for 2.5 quarters, it was all about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers without their two starting wideouts, of course, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. They still managed to play very good football. Kate Otten was a beast last night, 8 catches for 77 yards and a touchdown. But obviously I want to talk about what happened late in this game. And, we could pick it up when it was 17-10 Tampa Bay and Kansas City halfway through the third quarter. They sort of figure it out. And they're like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to run Kareem Hunt a whole bunch. So they end up with a 12-play, 70-yard drive where Hunt had 7 carries for 47 of them. Mahomes to Pirine on 3rd and goal at the 7 to tie it up at 17 apiece. 14-14 left in the ballgame. But Mahomes lands awkwardly on his left foot untouched. This was the ankle that was bothering him already. So it was never an Achilles situation. You're just like, oh, did he re-aggravate this? He had to be helped off the field. And I don't know about you, Kelly, but I started getting the texts from a couple places. It's like, oh, do we immediately bet Detroit best record? Detroit to win the, to win the Super Bowl? All these different ways to bet it.
I was pulling up markets. You
were doing it yourself.
Yeah.
And then magically, because that's the thing about, when we do our power rankings, and yesterday I was talking about, okay, well, the 3 best teams in whatever order you have them are Kansas City, Baltimore, and Detroit. But Kansas City's one of these where if they were to lose Patrick Mahomes, they drop to 8 pay. I'm just making up a number.
Totally,
but they just drop completely, right? So during that commercial break, all these possibilities existed. Then they come back from the commercial and he's magically just jogging on the sideline.
Yeah.
Nothing happened.
I forget who was, someone else did it this past weekend too, or same thing. Immediate reaction was, okay, let me get out the phone. I mean, we complain about this enough on this show. For you guys on the East Coast or whatever, maybe you have it a lot easier and you can just pull it up on the computer real quick. But I got to get all my apps ready, right? I got to get them ready just in case I want to make a bet.
To get ready
so you hit
to get
commercial
ready.
And I'm like, all right, sign in. And then, like you said, then we come back and he's just jogging and you're like, oh, okay.
When Nevada gets sports betting, is that on the ballot today if we get sports betting in Nevada? Because once we do, this state is going to be unbelievable. So
if you lost daylight savings time and someone had opened up gambling in this state, I'd vote whoever that person is.
Oh, by the way, being back on the East Coast and watching sports till the crack of dawn, till 1 a.m. was such a reminder of Pacific time zone, still the way to go.
I don't know if I can ever do it again.
Oh, you can't. Well, first of all, you know what I kept saying? I said, we couldn't do, sorry about this, little aside. Kelly and I forget sometimes that we're on the radio, we're just having a conversation. We couldn't do this if we were doing it on the East Coast.
No.
There's no way. There's absolutely no way.
And after like 6 years living out here, all I ever think about is how many Saturday nights in my mid-20s I was like sweating out $100 bet on a USC football game till 1:30 in the morning, and I was like, what am I doing with my life?
USC, about Hawaii. All right, so it's 17-17, Tampa Bay 3-and-out. So Kansas City then, 15 plays, 78 yards. Mahomes to D-Hop, who was awesome yesterday in his second game with the Chiefs from 5 out. And the Chiefs lead it 24-17 with 4:17 left. By the way, D-Hop, 8 for 86, 2 touchdowns. Kelsey, 14 for 100 on 16 targets.
It's like all he looks at. All he looks at is those two guys.
How's he open all the time? Mahomes 34 44 for 291 in the end, 3 touchdowns, no picks. He was sacked 4 times. So it's 24-17. Tampa Bay gets the ball back with, again, what did I say? 4:17 left. They go 3-and-out. But then Kansas City, so they still have all 3 of their timeouts, Tampa Bay does. Kansas City goes 3-and-out because Pirine drops, this game is in the rain. Pirine drops a third down pass, which leaves Tampa Bay with 1 timeout, Kelly, and the ball at their own 29 with 2:16 left, down 7. They get it all the way to the 1 of Kansas City, and the clock is moving, and Todd Bowles decides, I'm going to use this timeout with 30 seconds left.
Yeah.
Which was gaffe number 1, because there's, I don't know about you guys, but I've never seen any evidence in all of my watching Patrick Mahomes that suggests that he can matriculate the ball down the field and score very quickly. I don't think that tape exists. So with 30 seconds, I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you using it so quickly? Like, just there's no point. Tampa Bay does get the touchdown 2 plays later.
And good on the broadcast for immediately calling it out, too.
Good on them. Yes, they were all
like,
over
what
it.
are they doing? What is he doing?
Buck and Aikman are pretty good about noticing stuff. Not so much some of the Sunday crews, but Buck and Aikman are pretty good about that. They do score Mayfield to Ryan Miller from 1 out with 27 seconds left. And Todd Bowles decides we're going to kick the extra point to tie this up, as opposed to going for 2 for the possible win. Or loss, I get it. You can lose 2. Now, this is not revisionist. While they were matriculating the ball down the field, I text you, I'm again on the thread with Fezzik and Falika and Will Hill and Wishnev, and I immediately text, I'm like, do you go for 2 if you score here? Wishnev immediately is like, oh, absolutely, it's not even a question. Mm-hmm. It's not even a question. And, of course, Todd Bowles did not. And I've heard some folks again this morning who are like, no, it's a perfectly fine decision. I'm going to have to disagree. No, it is not. Because the only calculus you need to make in this situation is, would I rather play more football against Patrick Mahomes, or would I rather not? That's it. It's really that simple. This dude is just, again, he puts his cape on. Aikman used the phrase last night, and anything is possible. It's why last year, again, remember Aaron Schatz. By the way, Aaron Schatz is going to be on the show tomorrow from FTN, the creator of DVOA, for his midseason check-in. Remember last year, he had Baltimore through DVOA. He had Baltimore and San Francisco as 2 of not only the 2 best teams through DVOA last year, but 2 of the greatest teams since he's been tracking this, and we're going back to the late 70s now. 2 of the top 10 teams ever. But Patrick Mahomes is a hack for the sport. I don't mean hack in a bad way. I mean that he hacks the system. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter when he is involved. Someone was making the case, forgive me, I can't remember who it was on Twitter, who was saying, I think it was Scotty B, I believe it was, who said, the reason that he's so short in the MVP market and nobody seems to get it is they're 8-0 because of him and only him. And I get what he's saying, and maybe that is why ultimately the stats are going to win out in a market like that, I think, with awards. But I understand the point, which is he just pollutes everything about the game, pollute in a good way here, because it just defies all logic. It doesn't matter what's going on. He figures it out. And so sure enough, Kansas City wins the toss, because that is that's the quirk of NFL overtimes. They win the toss, and in the regular season, if you score a touchdown first, that's it. Katie barred the door, and that's, of course, what they did. You could almost predict it, by the way. What number would you have put on? When the Chiefs won the toss, it was like minus 280-something, but it might as well have had 25 zeros behind it.
What, that they were going to win, or that the Bucs were never seeing the ball again?
Either way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and they do matriculate, and Kareem Hunt scores from 2, 30 to 24, ball game.
I will say Okay, part of the reason you go for 2 there also, we talked about other situations over the weekend. We talked about other situations during the course of the year. Fine, I might have a different answer. Like you said, it's Patrick Mahomes. The other part, I don't want to say I'll push back on what Scotty tweeted in, but it's not just Patrick Mahomes these last 2 years.
It's the defense.
You have an elite defense. You're one of the best defenses in the NFL. And I would say, from the Tampa Bay perspective, why are you doing this for both of those, right? You're going to give a chance of giving Mahomes the ball back, right? Or you're going up against one of the elite defenses in the NFL without your 2 best wide receivers that have helped carry you through this whole entire season.
Put it this way. If I had said to you before the game even started, if I had said, Mr. Bowles, I have a proposition for you.
You have a chance to steal this game.
Here's your choice. You get the ball at the 2-yard line to try to get it in the end zone, and you win the football game. 1 play to win it, or lose it if you don't, right? Or you get to, get the repercussions of whatever the coin flip results in. By the way, if it goes to Kansas City, then you play football with them over an extended period of time. I think you take the 2-yard play every time.
I think so,
I don't want to play this dude.
I think so, too. You want to hear from Bulls?
Sure.
We got a little hit
Todd
from
Bowles.
him after the game, talking about the decision.
Very minor. We wanted to get it to overtime with the wet conditions on the field. We felt like we had to go into overtime instead of go for 2. So we had our shots. We lost the game. We went for 1. We took our shots. We had our chances all game. We just lost the game. It didn't come down to that.
That's all wonderful.
What is the? I'm not the first person to bring this up today. I've heard other people. What does the wet field conditions have to do with that decision?
The wet field conditions could manifest at any time.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
There's no. Todd Bowles, I will always love you because you are a Washington football team Super Bowl champion, but I'm gonna go against you on that one.
And great cover.
Chiefs win, but the Bucs get the money. We'll come back. Drew Dinsick on the NFL and the election as well. It's a numbers game at VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
The world's largest sports book in Las Vegas is right at your fingertips. Hi, I'm Derek Stevens. I'm a lifelong sports bettor, and I'm the owner of Circa Sports. It's sports betting the way it should be, with transparent and high betting limits, tight money line splits, exceptional customer service, and more. Download your new bookie today at circasports.com. Start betting like a pro from anywhere in Nevada.
Coming up Tuesday on Follow the Money, the show everyone's talking about. The first TV show with the college football rankings comes out. Paul Stone with picks, Circa owner Derek Stevens in studio, and election odds. Follow the Money weekdays 4 to 7 Eastern on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Want to see who at VSiN is on a hot streak? Go to VSiN.com/picks to see all the selections and weekly leaderboard of VSiN hosts, writers, and guests. Become a VSiN Pro subscriber and get every pick sent to your inbox daily. Just head to VSiN.com/pro.
So, Paulie, have you had a chance to read the VSiN Daily yet?
Yeah, came in at 3 a.m. What's Bill doing up that late?
Well, rumor has it starts off with a 12-hour meditation session.
Then he just pours himself over film and live TV, really focusing and taking it all in. Bill's in with the biggest insiders, talking trade secrets, strategies, the whole nine, absorbing the info.
And then and only then can the writing process begin.
In Las Vegas, Bill's late night becomes your early morning. Wake up to the very latest betting insights in your inbox with the VSiN Daily. Sign up for free at vsin.com/newsletter.
Numbers Game on VSiN, the sports betting network.
With so many sports in action, there's no better time to put the VSiN experts to work for you. Become a VSiN Pro subscriber today. Get instant access to our daily best bets with the leaderboard to see which VSiN expert has the hot hand. 19 hours of live programming, power, strength, and better ratings, plus our exclusive betting splits. Start your VSiN Pro subscription today for as little as $9.99. See everything VSiN has to up your betting game. Sign up today at vsin.com/subscribe. That's vsin.com/subscribe. Gil Alexander, it is Kelly Bidlin. It is Election Day. It's always interesting to see all the other things that happen during Election Day, and you're like, oh, this was a good day to start this. One of them is the first college football.
There's several of those
today.
The
first college football rankings, right?
Yeah,
Only the last one matters, as always, but that first one comes out, it's like, oh, yeah, sure, I'm sure I'll pay attention to that. I will, but not to any lengthy degree or any deep degree. The other one is the NFL trade deadline as well. And we do have a couple trades this morning. The Lions traded for Zadarius Smith from the Browns. They get Smith in a 7th rounder. The Lions get a 5th and 6th rounder. Zadarius Smith might not be a big pickup for other teams, but for the Lions, that's a pretty big pickup.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to replace the depth that you lose when Aiden Hutchinson went out. So that's a nice pickup. I think he has 5 sacks this year in 9 ball games. So that's one. And then Khalil Herbert went to the Bengals for a 7th rounder from the Bears. So they shore up their backfield. So a couple trades this morning, and Adam Schefter will be tweeting along all morning.
Yeah, interesting. It will be interesting to see who else gets moved, if anybody. Zadarius Smith, interesting. I've always liked him, but man, it's a big change going from playing opposite of Myles Garrett, right, to kind of being the guy in Detroit, or one of the guys at least in Detroit. I've always liked him, but what is it, third NFC North team now he'll play for?
That's right. That's right.
Vikings and Packers before?
Yeah, that is correct. Let us talk some NFL. Let us talk some election 2024 with our buddy Drew Dinsick. Of course, not the co-host of one podcast, but the co-host of 2. Dinsick Classic, the deep dive, which he does with Andy Molitor. Andy Molitor with a funny tweet yesterday, which I retweeted, which is, hey, if you're not in one of these swing states, basically I'm paraphrasing, he's like, listen, I know you keep saying your vote doesn't count, but there's hundreds of millions of us betting on the popular vote, so please do your part. And, of course, Drew also co-hosts the NBC Sports Bet the Edge pod with Jay Croucher. How you doing, Drewski? Courtesy of the Progressive Guest Line.
Well, and yeah, that was I don't think it wasn't even as jokey a tweet as it sounds like, because I think but a lot of the people in our community have pretty aggressively backed Harris' popular vote.
Yes.
There's a couple reasons why. Time utility of money. I'm not sure when any of the electoral votes will ultimately get graded. It's very unclear if you're tying up money in those markets, if it's a week, a month, 2 months. Whereas the popular vote, I think, is more likely to get graded relatively quickly. And the other thing is, I really have a tough time believing that they are in any way, shape, or form capturing, the parts of the country that are less scrutinized from a polling standpoint. With the national popular vote polls that are out there, they look very suspect to me. So I think the edge is somewhere in the 4% ballpark for Kamala in that market, and as far as polls go, and I think the probability should be somewhere in the 85-90%. So that was always a pretty good price for Harris to win the popular vote. So we'll see ultimately how things break. But that one I think was a very, very well supported position amongst those of us who take this seriously.
I am one of those that has Kamala on the popular vote, laying the juice, laying the wood, if you will, on there.
Yeah.
What was the election? Was it last one, Drew? Refresh my memory, or was it the one before? Was it 2020 or 2016, where we seemingly had to wait an eternity for these to get graded, the electoral ones?
Yeah, 2020 took a long time because there were several states where, first of all, the counting took a week, and then the legal challenges and the recounts and the fine tuning took even longer. I believe some places didn't ultimately grade 2020 until the election was certified on January 6th.
That's right.
That was a healthy wait, depending on how seriously you got involved there. It's very unclear, how long we're going to have to wait to understand who the winner is here today. But that said, I still think that this is This is a very, very funny, kind of unique betting opportunity. It always is. You have this very, very, long, live, open market with enormous amount of liquidity. It's moving presumably with nothing happening, right? It's not like we're watching a game and somebody scores a touchdown and that the odds should change. It's like some guy woke up and watched Fox News and is now doubly sure that Donald Trump is going to win. So he bets $1 million on something called Poly Market, which, some people have heard of, some people hadn't. And the price moves to 60% Trump and everybody's like, oh, wow, there's a shift. We got a shift. And it's like, that's not indicative of something material that happened. And even if you want to pin your, kind of analysis of the shifting in the price to Nate Silver's model moved. Well, Nate Silver's model moved because he tweaked the weightings of some polls, or some poll that he has highly weighted came out with a new one that showed some change. And it's like, like a lot of these polls, they're talking to a couple hundred people in a state, and they're anchoring to what those people said they did in 2020. And then trying to forecast the space of voter turnout in 2024. And it's just like, this is like gambling upon gambling upon gambling. And if you're putting like significant weight in the shift in price or, any specific polls, I think you're really doing yourself a disservice. And, I think there's realistic and reasonable likelihood that the polls have missed in either direction. And I think that there's a realistic case here that, that this is going to be a pretty kind of good lesson learned for a lot of people who are betting election markets for the first time.
Listen, man, I thought 2020, we talked about it after the 2020 election. I thought it was one of the more amazing betting case studies ever. I've said this before on the show, which is you had a bunch of folks who fashion themselves and probably are really good sports bettors who it doesn't translate to election betting. They believed that what was happening in 2020 was what had happened in 2016, and they were wrong about that. They didn't have the proper electoral college knowledge. They just went with Florida turned again, here we go. And they ended up losing their shirts on this. To your point about the polls, and I've made this as well, we've had aggregate, polls. There are things that come out that are at aggregate of almost 100 polls. And if one day there's 5 that lean one way or the other, it shifts that market in a way that isn't reflective of reality. Poly market, which you bring up, Drew, could be, if you believe reports, could be one really rich Trump bettor somewhere in Europe who is just mortgaging his entire life on this. So, I mean, none of that is indicative in the end.
Yeah, there's also a case that Poly market could be just somebody who's doing cheap amount of influence and hype, like to get the enthusiasm up for the Republicans. Like, there's some people surely on the Republican side who believe that enthusiasm matters for them. And that if their guy is winning, they're more likely to go and vote on election day. And so, hey, you can spend $5 million to run a terrible ad in a swing state, or you can spend $5 million on Poly market to get the world to believe that there is a very high likelihood, so that there's broad enthusiasm for your candidate. I'd believe it.
Yeah.
I also would like anyone to tell me that there's for sure not someone out there donating $10 million to the Harris campaign and then turning around and betting $10 million on Trump just in case, so that they are at worst of case break even, right? Like, and I'd say this with a little bit of tongue in cheek, but like, there will be billions of dollars swung in the business world based on government contracts for, different entities. And like, now that there is a fundamental way to cover your bases by, making bets on certain aspects, it seems kind of absurd to me that, people aren't using that as a way to hedge. You guys probably have heard these kind of stories before, but that like, if you're a ticket broker and you have tickets for Game 6 of the World Series in LA, right? And if you know that you're going to get a markup on the sale of those tickets, that's going to give you, it's going to be a $200,000 windfall. Well, guess what? Go down to Circa and bet $100,000 that the Dodgers are going to win Game 5, or else you're out $200,000. Like, that is a straight up loss. And so, like, you'll hear those stories where like, oh man, Better X just showed up at Circa. He just bet $100,000 on the Dodgers. Like, oh, you know something? Yeah, he knows he's going to lose $200,000 if there's no Game 6. Like, that's like there's a lot of funny kind of machinations like that. And I don't know. I just think this particular election cycle has been fascinating because the polling has been so consolidated in terms of saying the same thing across the polls. And the reason is the methodology changed super aggressively from 2020 to 2024. And the pattern bettors who are like, hey, they missed on Trump in 2016. They missed on 2020. They're going to miss on him again. Like that may be very, very wrong this year.
Right now, former President Trump, minus 165. Consensus to win the election. Kamala Harris, the vice president, plus 135 on the comeback. As far as the popular vote, Democrats minus 400. Big favorites in that. One more election question for Drew on the other side that I'm curious about. And then we'll talk NFL Week 10, see what he's bet already on Election Day 2024. I find all this stuff fascinating. We'll come back on a numbers game at VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Sports betting game with VSiN's exclusive betting splits. Stay ahead with real-time market trends and track bet percentages on any matchup, then uncover the edge by comparing them to the amount of bets placed to find out where the sharp money is headed. Upgrade to VSiN Pro to access betting splits, live odds, line moves, power ratings, and in-depth game analysis. Go to VSiN.com/pro to join VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This is VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
A numbers game on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Don't forget, Sport Trade changing the game. Minus 104 lines instead of minus 110. Available in 4 states, coming to Virginia as well. Sport Trade, check it out. High limits, get it now. Again, so many different options in the sports betting world. Sport Trade, blazing their own trail. Check it out. Alex Kane, always nice enough to come on the show, the CEO of Sport Trade. We have another trade in the NFL, and the Dallas Cowboys have overdealt.
Yeah, I would say so. Jonathan Mingo, wide receiver Jonathan Mingo, and a 7th-round pick to the Cowboys from Carolina. The Panthers get a 4th-rounder.
You were saying off air, they traded a 4th-rounder for that?
I saw this come up, and we were mid-conversation with Drew. I just saw Jonathan Mingo come across, and I'm like, I'll get to it in like 10, 15 minutes. Like, that's not a big deal. I didn't see the compensation. Like, the 4th-round pick. What?
Oh, man. By the way,
kind of reeks of desperation, Jerry.
Let's get back to Drew here a second. I just want to, again, these are the bets that I have made. That's what we do here on this show. These are the bets that I have made on the election. And again, apolitically speaking, ladies and gentlemen, again, let's all be friends after this. I'm just trying to make money. I have Kamala to win from some time ago at plus 150. I have her to win the popular vote. I have, because I believe Kamala wins, I have her sweeping the blue wall of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin at plus 155. And then yesterday I added a couple or few states, one of which, 2 of which are in that blue wall, but a third, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin being those 2 inside the blue wall. But the third that I added was Iowa. Kamala to win Iowa at plus 400 at 4-1 odds. This is the sort of the flyer I'm taking. There is some indication with some more reliable polling that perhaps a state with 6 electoral votes that is, believed to be a Republican state each and every time out here might actually swing to the Democrats and Kamala Harris today. So that's my one sort of flyer in this. Drew, I have one more election question for you, and then I do want to talk football with you, which is, typically in past elections, we've been able to bet this at a offshore pillar like bookmaker. They have decided to punt on this year. Do you have any indication as to why that is?
Well, they have markets up.
Do they?
Yeah, they keep moving them around.
Wait a minute. Where in this entire time I've not seen one market at bookmaker?
Oh yeah, no, they're taking $50K a click. They moved it to the very top of the menu in places where the NFL usually is most recently, unless they took them down today.
I have not seen them for the last month.
It's a smaller menu of options than otherwise, but they used, if you go to bookmaker, you're used to looking probably at the bottom for election.
Yeah.
Or politics.
It says, correct.
They moved it up to the like the middle top, and then now it's at the very top of the menu. So it's
under
up
under politics, under the politics heading.
Under the politics heading, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so
maybe you don't, or maybe you're not getting them for geolocated purposes. That would be weird.
Could it be different between credit accounts and actual bookmaker?
It could be. Yeah, it could be.
That's what it is.
It's possible.
I've never seen it.
Interesting.
Never seen it.
Oh,
that's interesting.
That is fascinating. Yeah, no, I think in general, I like your card. I agree with all that. The Iowa one is fascinating. If people don't already know about the Seltzer poll, no, this is not that people prefer Topo Chico over La Croix. The Seltzer poll is done by Ann Seltzer in Iowa, and it is typically a very kind of old school way of polling. It's not as It's not as massaged into kind of recall vote or really forcing demographic fitting, and it's been very, very reliable for Iowa in particular. And yeah, that was sort of the big news that really swung the election markets in the last 48 hours, because she's providing, or at least she's suggesting, that there is massive support for Harris in Iowa, which would be a huge shock considering Trump won by 10 and 8% the last 2 elections. So that would be a big deal. And honestly, like, you read between the lines, if you think that she did a good job this time and has kind of captured the sentiment of the voting bloc more so than the people who are doing the polling and predicting 50-50 races, then her information would actually indicate that there's potential for just a massively positive night for Harris in general. And it's kind of got my head in the place where there's really 3 outcomes here. This is either 50-50, narrow Trump win, narrow Trump loss. That all depends on Pennsylvania, in my opinion. I don't think Michigan and Wisconsin are really swing states. I think those are solidly Harris. I think Georgia and North Carolina are lean Trump, but that is kind of where to watch for me, at least early in the night, because I'm going to be betting this live almost certainly. Florida, I would say it would be strongly Trump, and that may again be one of the first big ones to be reported and could influence market sentiment to the tune of getting a better price on Harris than you can get personally. I have kept a bunch of my powder dry for that scenario specifically. And then I think ultimately, like, this is either a 50-50 where it comes down to Pennsylvania, and that one is the most narrow from what I can tell you. And then, or there is one third leg, which is Seltzer was right. All the rest of the polls were, fitting too aggressively, and that there is a blue wave that could potentially make this decided tonight, which would be, I don't know, the most enjoyable, I think, of anyone who doesn't want to sit through, 2 months of complaining about election cheating and, legal challenges and recounts and all that garbage. But, we'll probably know by about 9 p.m., I think, if Georgia and North Carolina are actually up for grabs for the Democrats, because that, to me, signifies that this is going to be a victory by margin. And if ultimately things kind of go chalky, then it just comes down to Pennsylvania, and we're not going to know Pennsylvania until Saturday. So I think buckle up for that one.
Week 10, National Football League. Drew, what have you bet so far?
Denver plus the points was a good one for me. That popped pretty immediately. That popped looking at numbers with the markets before we even saw the lines. And then once Kansas City goes to overtime, Pat Mahomes tweaks his ankle again. Now that looks like a very good bet to me at +9. I think that's going to be a close game decided by one score. And honestly, starting to wonder what happened really with Kansas City's run defense last night. And if that is sort of like cracks in the armor, then that could ultimately be a surprise in favor of Denver pretty cleanly. I have Washington at -2.5. I think that should be 3. And then the rest of the sides are pretty doggone tight for me this week. So it's going to be a little bit of a sweat finding 5 picks for contests, I got to tell you. Obviously, the fact that some of the teams that I feel like I had the strongest grasp on have gone to the bye is not helpful. I have a 1-point advantage for Baltimore over Cincinnati. I think that should be 7. I have a 0.4 advantage for New York over Carolina. I think that should be 5.5. Tiny edge for Indy against Buffalo, probably passing on that one. I think that should be 3.5. Tiny edge on Jacksonville against Minnesota, probably going to pass on that. There's a lot of road chalk this week, which is a little bit weird. Don't really see this very often, and trying to maybe going to do a little bit of extra homework on what home field advantage has actually been worth this season so far before getting involved. I have an edge on New England against Chicago. That one's a fun story because it feels like Chicago's coming unglued right now in that locker room. I think that number should be 4.5, and I can see 6.5s out there. And then everything else is pretty close to market. I'm going to have to make a decision at some point whether to just play Philly. The fact that Dallas is making win now moves, like trading a 4th rounder for a wide receiver 4, is hilarious considering their playoff chances. I simulated
4th rounder for that. Yeah.
I don't know. You want to my Dallas Cowboys playoff probability right now? You want to guess what it is?
Oh man.
12%.
2.8.
Oh, I was going to say 7.
2.8.
Yeah.
And this is, again, like expecting that Dak is going to be gone for the next 4 weeks. And by the way, gird your loins for Cooper Rush versus Daniel Jones on Thanksgiving, middle of the day. That one's going to be That one's going to be just a delight.
Drew, loins are girded, whatever that means. Absolutely.
If you guys are like me, I feel like everybody needs that one game to be kind of a dud to plan dinner or food around then.
Yeah.
So yeah,
let's root for it at this point.
Yeah, you're helping us out this time.
Hey, real.
Yeah, I mean, you got Mutiny in Chicago in the morning, then you got Dud in the middle game, and then the night game is Green Bay versus somebody I forget. But yeah, it's going to be a weird Thanksgiving.
You see DJ Moore just walking off the field mid-play?
Oh,
he's never seen anything like that.
He's been doing that a bunch this season.
That's not the first time.
No, I've seen him quit on at least 6 plays, and in most of the time he's quitting, it's disgust in the quarterback decision making. He's just like fed up with whatever's going on behind the scenes, which is that is an aggressively bad sign for Chicago, who, I mean, Andy and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but like you can parse the data and come up with a pretty decent conclusion that Caleb Williams is the 4th best rookie quarterback playing right now, which is amazing.
Cue up the Merill Hodge highlight when he says nothing special. Yeah.
Yikes.
Okay. Drew, really appreciate it. By the way, I only came up with 2 on guessing lines. We were aligned on Washington. The other one I had was Detroit. You're staying away from that.
It's tough to make a strong case on that without knowing all of Houston's injury information, but I make that one Houston if I had to bet.
Okay. Drew Dinsick, everybody. Drew, good luck tonight.
Best of luck, man.
At @whale_capper. AFC making miss playoffs next.
Got a good thing coming. Just wait and see. It's a good.
You spoke, we listened. Introducing the all-new VSiN Watch app. Now, you can watch and listen to VSiN expert analysis live wherever you are. Missed a show? No problem. Catch replays of VSiN's full lineup at any time. View highlights sorted by sport. Or use the search feature to find specific teams and topics you're looking for. And the best part? It's free for a limited time. Download the VSiN Watch app today. Available now on the App Store and Google Play. And join us on the Sports Betting Network.
A numbers game on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Our all-new VSiN Watch app makes it easy to watch or listen to VSiN anywhere, anytime on your phone or tablet, and for a limited time only, you can watch it for free. Don't cost you nothing. Visit the Apple app or Google Play Store now to download the VSiN Watch app and get 24/7 access to our live audio and video stream. Watch replays of your favorite VSiN shows. Easily stream video to your smart TV, browse clips by sport, or use the search feature to find the specific VSiN expert insights you're interested in. The VSiN Watch app is free to download for both Apple and Android users, so don't delay, that is. Visit the Apple or Google App Store now to download the all-new VSiN Watch app now and become part of the Sports Betting Network. Let me say two things. One, you see the visual that we just had up there? It's great that I'm right next to Stormy. That always works out well when you're pictured right next to Stormy. And then two, it's when I first heard VSiN Watch app. It's not a watch. It is a watch app. Just want to make it clear. Yesterday I'm like, a watch?
You've been struggling on this for 24 hours.
Yeah, it's really been bothering me. Anyway, it's only me that has the problem with this. It's the VSiN Watch app.
We had a lot of questions when our app went away. That's how a lot of people used to take in our content. Well, it's back now, and it's a pretty simple version to just go in, watch, listen, however you want to consume our content. It is right there.
It's fantastic. Do we have the Merill Hodge?
I think they're still getting it ready.
Let me just set it up. Can I set it up?
Sure. I have no idea how long this is about to be, but yeah.
How long the clip is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, let me just set it up. Is that it's by the way, to answer your question, it's 90 seconds. To let you know, Merill Hodge, the former Pittsburgh Steeler, who had to leave the NFL because of multiple concussions, had horrible concussion stories. But Merill Hodge, among his other, in his second career as a broadcaster, has made many really good predictions. Perhaps the most famous one was when what's my man name's Skip Bayless. When Skip Bayless was touting Johnny Manziel before that draft, Hodge was like, he's just not going to be anything at all. Starting with that kind of prediction, but he's made other really great predictions over the years that have aged very well. He also had some others that had to do, if I recall correctly, with Jadeveon Clowney. But he's really been accurate on stuff. And we had him on Super Bowl week when we were doing shows for DraftKings over at Mandalay Bay. And Merill Hodge was kind enough to come on a numbers game. And the subject of Caleb Williams did come up. And here's what Merill Hodge had to say.
In a minute.
Oh, okay.
Still working on it.
Oh, we're still working on it. Okay. Yeah. I thought when you point at me, you're like, oh, it's ready to
go.
But
you guys miss all these single shot hand motions I do.
Yeah.
There's a lot of waving back there to the crew. Sometimes
this is usually a go.
There's usually hand motions to Gil sometimes. Thumbs up if we got a guest.
I thought you were counting down the backcourt violation. But anyway,
that's what it was.
But that was, by the way, he said a few things when he was with us. One of which was, I was like, you've made all these. It wasn't just I'm forgetting all the really good predictions he's made, but some of them were like, really long shot predictions that came home. But one of the things I said to him was, forget this analysis stuff. Do you ever want to be in a front office?
Right.
And he kind of was like, I don't know. He said he wasn't really getting calls about that. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure what his answer was on that. But he was one of the people who expressed doubts. I'll put it in Wishnev terms, okay? We'll get to Hodge in a minute. Wishnev terms was, oh, you mean a guy that had most of his great plays at a school where he had 5-star wideouts and he was typically playing other schools or often playing other schools that didn't have 5-star defensive backs, that he would just run around, scramble, then would throw it deep downfield, and what do you know, magical, that would be a successful play. He said that it wouldn't necessarily translate to the pros. Todd's point was that shouldn't be that big of a surprise. Here is what Merill Hodge said when he was on a numbers game back in February.
Okay, I have, Caleb Williams, I'm only halfway there, okay? The one thing I can tell you this from studying him last year and early parts of this year, there's one thing that is clear to me. He is not special. He is not special. There's nothing special about him. There's nothing that I would be like, wow. Okay, these guys like Patrick Mahomes. No way. I mean, C.J. Stroud, he doesn't throw the ball nearly like C.J. Stroud does. He doesn't play from the pot. In fact, I think he struggles on throwing the ball off movement, which is, I want to confirm that, but there's just nothing special. Okay, and here's what happened to Justin Fields that I think you have to consider. The worst thing that you ever want to have to any player, but especially a quarterback, is constant change once you draft him. What has happened to Justin Fields? constant change. Head coach, coordinator, head coach, coordinator. I mean, you can't really know a quarterback and a player until their second year and definitely their third year to know what you really have. And you keep all these changes. How do you really know it? Now, based on what I have seen, I would keep him, but I would use that draft pick. If somebody really thinks Caleb Williams is the man, I would bait that and get as many picks as I possibly can, because I'm going to go back to what wins a championship, and that is teams. And the more good players you have across the board, the better chance you have. But right now, I do not see how that guy is better than Justin Fields and where he is today.
It's pretty interesting. Now, Drew said something which I was like, oh, really? Drew said you could make a case that he's the fourth best of the quarterbacks that were drafted in the first round. And Michael Penix has barely played. So clearly he's not talking about Penix. He's talking about, obviously, Jaden Daniels, but he's putting Drake May and Bo Nix in front of him. Is that what I'm to gather from that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, who else is there, right?
That's all. I mean, that's the only conclusion.
Trying to think, there was a lot of rookie quarterbacks last year.
I think that might be harsh a little bit, right? Because we don't have enough about Drake May to really know.
But that's how I would put it. Yeah. I kind of agree with him right now, but I don't think I have enough to make that statement about Drake May.
I brought this up yesterday while we were doing guessing lines. I was just sort of ruminating on this. When you look at the AFC playoff standings, you have 5 teams in the Chiefs, Bills, Steelers, Texans, and Ravens, based on division position right now or their current record, that you sort of have to pencil in, if you will, at the very least, into the AFC playoffs. 7 teams obviously making it. And the question I brought up yesterday was, okay, who's going to fill the other 2 positions? Now, the Chargers of the remaining teams, are the one that's in the best position with a 5-3 record. And by the way, if you look at the make-miss playoff numbers here, obviously the Chiefs at 8-0 are off the board. They don't even post that. The Bills, massive favorites because they're running away with the AFC East. No one's catching them. Ravens, as good as they are. Texans with this pretty similar situation, not quite the same as the Bills, but they look to be running away with, or at least have a nice cushion in the AFC South. Steelers have a gauntlet coming up, not quite the gauntlet we thought it was, but at least they banked the 6 wins, so you get the top 5 there. Should the Chargers, Kelly, be minus 400 to fill one of those final 2 positions? And then if you believe that, where do you go with the bet in terms of who the 7th team is? Broncos, Colts, Bengals, Jets.
Yep.
With the Jets being the longest shot of that bunch, currently at 3-6, 3-1 to make the playoffs. Let me make the case for the Jets, and let me make the counter argument for the Jets.
Okay.
Ready for this? A little counterpoint on the New York Jetropolitans. The Jets beat the Texans last Thursday night. Texans without either Nico Collins or Stephon Diggs, Diggs being out for the entire season. Here is the remaining schedule for the New York Jets. At Arizona, home against Indy, then a bye, home Seattle, at Miami, at Jacksonville, home Rams, at Buffalo, home Miami. Those that would bet the Jets at 3-1, obviously they think still highly of Aaron Rodgers, who will turn 41, is it, in December, I believe? 41 years old in December. They will say, well, that schedule is easy enough so that they can get some wins and maybe get to a winning record. The counter-argument is the New York Jets stink at football. That's my counter-argument.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I could bet that.
I don't think I could
be
either.
if I said to you, okay, you must make a bet on one of these? What's the bet?
You know what the answer? You know what the answer? I was looking at these yesterday a little bit before they got taken down for Monday Night Football, because we had brought it up quick on the show yesterday. I wanted to follow up with it.
It's the Broncos, isn't it?
I'm not there yet. I do think as far as they make
don't say the Colts.
As far as they make the playoffs, I think it would be the Bengals. I'd still look at it even money. I wish I was getting a little bit more bang for my buck there, but for a make bet, it would be that. Gil, I can't get past the Steelers' schedule still. I can't get over it, man.
Too.
Me too. I can't do it. I'm not making a bet on it, but 3-1 on for them to miss with the schedule that's remaining. I mean, it's Commanders, Ravens. Yes, as you said, it's not as bad as we thought it could be, but this is not easy. I mean, what if I told you they won one game the rest of the way?
Well, that's why I have not waved the white flag on any of those unders, on any of them, because yes, the Browns' 2 games look easier than we did pre-flop, but the Commanders looks much harder than it did pre-flop. So at Commanders, home Ravens, at Browns, at Bengals, home Browns, at Eagles, at Ravens, home Chiefs, home Bengals. Come on.
I mean, they got to sweep the Browns. They got to sweep the Browns.
Woo.
You got to take 3 games from the Browns and Bengals, it feels like.
You better try to beat Washington this week if you want to get past
that too, yeah.
Yeah.
That's where every one of these teams that I kept dissecting their case, I'm like, there's no price on the Steelers. I keep coming back.
I was saving that for the end of this, but you beat me to it. Because I really do think good that they banked them. They've proven me wrong so far, for sure. I raise my hand, and maybe Mike Tomlin will continue to do so. But that is tough.
And you know where I started with the Chargers. I was like, Chargers 3-1? I don't think this team's all that great. But no, I gravitated to the Steelers.
Chargers schedule's easier. Much easier.
Yeah.
Will Hill, all his bets on the other side. It's a numbers game at VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Sports bettors, this is your chance. VSiN is bringing you an unbeatable deal. Get a VSiN Pro subscription for only $9.99 for your first 30 days. That's over 65%